Imagine reaching a milestone that feels monumental, $100,000 in your bank account. The number glows on your screen, a badge of success that seems to signal security, freedom, and accomplishment. For many, it's the point where dreams of financial independence start to crystallize. But as the euphoria fades, a subtle realization often emerges. Despite this seemingly impressive sum, life doesn't look radically different. Bills are still due, obligations remain, and the sense of financial freedom you imagined doesn't automatically arrive. What is it about this number, or really any number in personal finance, that creates the illusion of transformation? And why does crossing this threshold rarely feel as liberating as we expect? The answer begins with perspective. $100,000 is undeniably a significant sum in absolute terms, yet in the broader context of long-term wealth, it represents only a starting point. Consider the mathematics of expenses. The average American household spends tens of thousands of dollars annually. In that frame, $100,000 covers only a few years of living, and even less when unexpected costs arise. It is large enough to feel meaningful, yet small enough to quickly dissipate against real-world obligations. Psychologically, we anchor to round numbers, giving them outsized emotional significance, which explains why this particular milestone carries so much weight even though, objectively, it does not confer lasting financial security. Behavioral economics offers further insight. Humans are wired to interpret milestones as signals of achievement, creating an emotional high that can distort decision-making. Upon reaching $100,000, some might increase spending, rationalizing that they earned a reward, a phenomenon often referred to as lifestyle inflation. Others may feel pressure to invest, hoping to accelerate wealth accumulation. Yet, without a systemic understanding of risk, compounding, or diversification, these moves may have minimal effect or even introduce unnecessary volatility. The number becomes a psychological trigger, encouraging behavior that feels productive but may not materially improve financial stability. Mathematics clarifies this disparity between perception and reality. Suppose someone has $100,000 in savings and chooses to invest it in a diversified portfolio with an expected average return of 5% per year. Ignoring taxes and fees for simplicity, that return generates $5,000 annually. While $5,000 is meaningful in isolation, it falls short of replacing a full-time income or covering unexpected emergencies. To sustain long-term financial independence, one must understand the scale of wealth required, the time horizon, and the effects of compounding. A six-figure sum is insufficient to produce lasting financial autonomy unless it exists within a broader system of disciplined savings, investments, and strategic planning. The systemic perspective further illuminates why $100,000 rarely feels transformational. Economic systems are structured around recurring obligations: rent, healthcare, education, transportation, and taxation. Even with careful budgeting, these systemic pressures ensure that wealth, measured in nominal dollar amounts, translates unevenly into real freedom. Wealth thresholds are not simply psychological markers, but are constrained by the mechanics of the economic environment. Reaching $100,000 is meaningful as a stepping stone, but it is far from a terminal point. It is a waypoint in a far larger journey of financial growth that often spans decades. Understanding these dynamics requires shifting identity from a short-term mindset to a systems-oriented view. Instead of framing $100,000 as an endpoint, it becomes a diagnostic tool, a way to measure saving habits, investment literacy, and risk awareness. Individuals who adopt this perspective are less likely to overestimate the power of a single number and more likely to appreciate incremental growth, compounding effects, and strategic patience. Wealth, in this sense, is not a single balance on a bank statement, but a continuous function of time, discipline, and systemic understanding. Historical parallels reinforce this concept. Across centuries, societies have seen individuals achieve sums considered large for their era, yet many remained vulnerable due to the recurring pressures of taxes, obligations, and economic volatility. In both the post-war economy and during periods of hyperinflation, the absolute size of savings often mattered less than the capacity to integrate them into a resilient financial system. Human psychology, conditioned to celebrate milestones, often misinterprets the significance of nominal wealth relative to enduring security. Even on a personal level, the emotional journey reveals much about financial perception. Early milestones produce dopamine-driven satisfaction, creating a mental association between round numbers and achievement. This can be motivating, but without a strategic framework, the excitement can lead to counterproductive behavior, such as overspending or premature investment risk-taking. Recognizing $100,000 as a marker rather than a solution transforms this psychological energy into constructive planning, shifting the focus from symbolic milestones to measurable progress toward long-term goals. The mathematics of scaling further underscores the point. To sustain financial independence with moderate living expenses, consider a target of $1 million instead of $100,000. At a 5% withdrawal rate, $1 million produces $50,000 annually, a sum that is materially transformative for most households. Comparatively, $100,000 generates only 1/10 of this effect, highlighting why crossing smaller thresholds, while emotionally satisfying, rarely results in the anticipated lifestyle changes. The lesson is clear. Perception and impact diverge sharply when wealth is measured in absolute numbers without accounting for systemic demands. Ultimately, the realization that $100,000 changes nothing is not discouraging but clarifying. It refines expectations, aligns behavior with long-term objectives, and emphasizes the need for a strategic, systems-based approach to wealth. Wealth becomes less about specific numbers and more about the consistent, disciplined application of principles that compound over time, creating real, sustainable security. In conclusion, $100,000 is a meaningful milestone because it signifies achievement, discipline, and progress. Yet its true value lies not in the immediate transformation it promises, but in its ability to highlight the structures and systems that underpin lasting financial stability. Recognizing the limits of symbolic wealth encourages patience, strategic thinking, and a broader appreciation of how incremental growth, thoughtful planning, and systemic awareness ultimately define true financial autonomy. Milestones matter, but understanding the mechanics behind them matters even more.